Hey everybody, welcome back to another midweek episode. So you know how sometimes there are those phrases that people use that just rub you the wrong way? So there's a phrase that I hate it when I hear it. It just guts me every time. And here it is. I'm disappointed in you. No, please don't say that. And sometimes the person doesn't even have to say it. Like, you can just see it in their eyes. Like, have you ever had one of those moments where maybe it's a significant other, or maybe it's a coworker, or maybe it's a friend, and you're like, you don't even have to say it. I know. Right now, you're disappointed in me. And what's behind a statement like that? I'm disappointed in you. There's an inconsistency between your actions and their expectations. And sometimes the fault lies with you. Sometimes it's because of something you said or did or didn't say or didn't do, and you're like, I know, I let you down. And you're disappointed in me. But sometimes the fault doesn't lie with you. The fault lies with somebody else's unrealistic expectations. And you're trying to do the best that you can, and yet you let another person down. And because of that, it makes you feel like a failure, like a less than, like a disappointment. And I'm just going to be honest with you. In life, we have to learn to live as a disappointment. I mean, think about Jesus. Jesus was a disappointment. And I know some of you are like, wait, what? Like, he's the Son of God. He's perfect. Yes. And yet he didn't always meet other people's expectations. He let them down. So the first century world that Jesus stepped into was swirling with all of these ideas of who the Messiah would be. And they had all of these expectations and hopes and dreams and desires. And one of them was that the Messiah would be the Prince of Peace. The Messiah would be the one who would drive out those dirty, rotten Romans. And Jesus showed up, and he didn't meet their expectations. I mean, yes, he was the Prince of Peace. Yes, he talked about peace, but it wasn't the way that they expected. Instead, Jesus would say things like this in John chapter 14, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. So do not let your hearts be troubled, and don't be afraid." And in that, he let them down. He didn't meet their expectations of what it meant to be the Prince of Peace. And what did they do? They booed him off the stage, and they put his back against a cross. Jesus was a disappointment. And the prophet Isaiah anticipates this as he says in Isaiah 53 that he was a man familiar with suffering, who was despised and rejected, like one from whom people hid their faces, and we held him in low esteem. He was a disappointment. And yet, it was exactly in that disappointment that Jesus did the work of bringing us peace. Because Isaiah chapter 53 reminds us a little bit further in the text that he was crushed for our iniquities, and that the punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we have been healed. So I'm just going to level with you today. You are going to have to learn to live as a disappointment. You are going to let other people down. Your actions are not always going to meet somebody else's expectations. And sometimes the fault lies with you. And when it does, here's what you need to do. You need to run to Jesus. You need to kneel before the cross. And you need to allow that blood that coursed through his veins, that was shed on the cross, you need to allow that to flow into the crevices of your heart and to give you peace. And to realize that that punishment that was upon him has brought you peace, and by his wounds you have been healed. And when the fault doesn't lie with you, when the fault lies with the other person and the unrealistic expectations that they have of you that you cannot meet, here's what you need to do. You need to run to Jesus. You need to fall on your knees before the cross. And you need to see that you stand there in good company, because Jesus too was a disappointment. Jesus too was despised and rejected. And you need to allow his promises spoken at the cross to drown out all of the ways that you have disappointed others. And to see that it's by his wounds that you have been healed. See, we're going to disappoint others. But here's what we need to remember. We are not a disappointment to God. Be encouraged by that today. Keep living for Jesus, and I'll see you again next time.